Hadouken! Hadouken! That is the sound of magic. That is the sound of me communicating with the commies. Yes, when I communicate with the kami, which I do in real life, I say the word Hadouken a lot. I'm Paul Ashman. That's Jesse Grabowski. We're jumping into the third attachment type. That is spells, the weirdest, and the Hadouken. Okay, and we
I
start with
remember Hadouken most fondly from Mega Man X. I don't know if you played that
sure.
game much, but if you got all of the capsules and you got like the white armor, and then you went to the like mole dude's level and you like played it 3 times and jumped and saw the heart tank, and then you went back and jumped up and you get the Hadouken and one hit all the bosses. That was good times. All right, this is Armor of the Earth.
You
Talk about
you
Armor of the
go
Earth.
you go Capcom interconnectivity between games. I don't know, building the brand of Capcom, which I don't think they make video games anymore, right? They're like out of the business. So
No, dude,
Armor of the
Street
Emperor,
Fighter's still huge. What? They don't make video games anymore? Armor of the Emperor. Stop
is that
embarrassing
Sega?
yourself.
Sega stopped making video games?
Sega. No, they stopped making video game systems. They still poop out a Sonic the Hedgehog game
Okay, well,
somewhere
if
every
you want to
year.
make fun of my lack of video game knowledge, feel free to leave it in the comments. Okay,
I
so
certainly will.
Armor of the Emperor. So it turns out the Emperor has no clothes. He has no armor because this card is awful. It is one of these weird, like, it's a spell, but it's armor, so it's an item. No, it's still just a spell, but it has the armor thing, and that's fine. And it gives Earth people Shugenja, and they have more force during the combat segment, but not when it counts. And it's free, so you could almost talk me into playing it, but nope, I'm never playing it. And how about you, Jesse? Is this something you'd ever bother with?
You can't envision some sort of Armor of the Earth Blitz deck where I buy like 2 cheapo Shigenja on one and then give them both an Armor of the Earth and then go to town.
It doesn't count for taking the province. It only counts during the combat segment before battle resolution. There's
Oh,
even
I
like little.
totally read it backwards. I read it as it only counts during battle resolution, not during the combat segment. So
There's even a
I
little
just read it. I
thing.
just read a study that millennials, they did an international study of people like age 16 to 65 of a bunch of different metrics like technical literacy and like numeric
Oh, we
literacy and
bombed, right?
actual
Our math
literacy.
skills were awful,
Oh,
and yeah,
millennials were dead last, even like in every category within their cohorts. So
yep.
like, I failed my literacy test. It is 1 a.m. to cut me a little bit of slack, but I had read this card before. I read it a couple times, and I really thought that it had to do with battle resolution. So never mind. Screw this card. Get out of my face, card.
So onward to conflagration.
Which I do not
This
say
is a
screw this card. This card is gas.
this is a sort of card that will, like, envision some kind of like cheap fire Shugenja Blitz deck, which there's not the card for right now. But one day, man, I'm just gonna bide my time and wait for them to make the mistake of printing me more awesome cheap Shugenja. Though there's a lot of really good Shugenja. Anyway, 3 force for 2 gold plus blah other range blah blah, and it's great. It's a great card. Like, if
Hey,
you had a follower that was 3 force for 2 gold, you'd play it, and that's what this thing is. Yeah, it takes an action and tempo and blah blah blah. Also, ranged attack strength increases from Kyoso Sensei or whatever. It's just numbers, man. 3 force for 2 gold is a good deal.
yeah, you're about the 3 force for 2 gold. You know what? I'm gonna go ahead. I like that. I like that trade. I like that +1 strength.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. There's all
It's
sorts
in
of
this unit. It doesn't work with a
yes.
lot of stuff.
Okay, I read that part, but so again, there's plenty of little spells that make ranged attacks, and this makes them just a little bit better. I think like
Yeah, I
giving your
mean,
range
there
attacks, like
is
a difference between a range 3 and a range 4 is a big jump. Like
And there is something
it
fun about,
matters.
like, I throw down 3 conflagrations, and now my Steal the Candle Flame makes a 0 that can make a 4. Like,
Right.
that's kind of, I don't know what the word is, darling. It's kind of just pretentious and cute and maybe a little over the top, but it's makes me smile to think about.
You can alchemy
That.
lab that +1 too.
That's right, absolutely, you can. Okay, Divide into Ash. We have this exact card already in the Dragon's Talon or Dragon's Breath. I always get them confused. Talon is 5 gold and it's bow for melee equal to your chi. Only no bonuses, but you can invest it up to like 9 to
Yeah,
get plus
yeah.
3
I'm looking at here
So,
the
like,
Dragon's Talon. This card is much better than the Dragon's Talon, though, right?
I don't know about much. It's better certainly because you gain force without having to invest, and you can get bonuses to the attack equal to your chi. So it's clearly better, and I think that Dragon's Talon saw some fridge play, and this is just a straight improvement over that. Except for very corner casey force math situations. So it's a good card, and I think it's one of the reasons to play all these different Shugenja decks that we're talking about.
Absolutely.
And you can put it on your naval guy and have a naval melee 3 or maybe a naval melee 4. And
well, the Shugenja 8 makes this
Yeah.
one bigger because it does discount chi. And remember that our favorite Burning Spirit card is still legal.
Yep.
So, I think this card is great. It's plus 2/4. You give it on a guy with a Burning Spirit, he gets plus 4 force, and then he makes like a melee 5 or 6, and that's awesome.
Yep. Shiba Tsukimi, man. Melee 5s all day long. Melee 6s.
All day strong. Now, okay, Earth's Embrace. So, cheap Shugenja deck with a bunch of Shugenja that attacks and plays Earth's Embrace. We're going to see the other card, Booming Thunder, Thunders, something Thunder, that copies the spell. So in theory, I can have 3, 4, 5 of these pretty easily and get a bunch of force. Again, I know I'm starting to sound like a broken record, but they have a bunch of these effects scattered all over the place. If I was really high on the one that's undead, and there's like 2 undead legal guys, I should be over the moon about the Shugenja one, because there's a jillion Shugenja, and they're all already really awesome. And hey, guess what? I am over the moon about it. I think this card is total gas. I think it's going to see all kinds of play. It totally solves the Phoenix Defensive Honor buy your stuff deck's problem of not having enough force at the end of the battle, because now you can just pump up like crazy.
I'm a little surprised by this card, because we already have this dragon defensive deck that cares about its force, right? Like that's a deck that existed in Ivory Strict, and the sort of Luke Gregory, like, here's all my dudes, and I have a bunch of force, and I play all these actions, and I win based on force. And this card feels a little insane to me. It feels like, first off, in that deck where you have a bunch of Earth Shugenja just sort of hanging out, it's free. So it's just a free. So, like, it's a fate card that for free gives you, like, the contentious terrain effect.
Yeah.
And that's, like, contentious terrain's a good card. And what's the other one? The terrain that gives you a bonus if you have detachment. Yeah, and it's just like, wow, this is, this starts to add up. And the fact that you can play a bunch of these is really, really solid. Will it be answered? Will we force people to, like, use your true natures on it and stuff? Yeah, probably. But it's just, again, when it starts to do its thing, it's gonna really. Now, there's not a lot of Shugenja followers. There's like 2. I can think of 2. I think there's 3.
But there are tons of like cheap Shugenja. And like Phoenix specifically can fill out a deck with like 5 and lower cost guys and just like chuck them onto the board like crazy.
Yep. And so this turns into, gain 5 force as a battle action, which is good, and it spreads out the force, which is also good. So
yeah,
I'm
very impressed. I'm very impressed by this card. Like, it's not quite Family Dojo, because you can't splooge out followers. Like, you can't splooge out personalities the same way you could followers, and like Rattling Raiders not a Shugenja, unfortunately. But this is another one of those cards that's like, just keep your eyes on it, like build around, like attempt to build around this card. Like, this is the kind of
one of our split decisions was one of the Phoenix Shugenja that was like 2 force, 4 chi for 6 gold, but gains a bonus when you put a spell on her. Well, here's the spell for.
Yep.
Right, so now she goes right up to 4 force, and then she uses the spell, and she's at 5 force. And having a 5 force personality as soon as, we turn 3 to attack, like, you're on your way, man.
Home sweet home. Okay, I think Favor of the Air Spirits is another total gas card. I think ranged attacks and melee attacks are a huge part of the format. They're some of the best effects in the game. And not only does this turn off their ranged and melee attacks, it makes it like so obnoxious to actually play them that I think a lot of players will just get stumped by this card.
It does. I mean, this is like, so these kinds of spells, interrupts are great for like misclicky, players make mistakes. I do this, I interrupt it. And this one is super frustrating to the point where it will make you just not use your ranged attacks.
That's what I'm saying. Like, you have to spend an action for one of your guys to die. And
it's interesting because it's like it works. It actually works now with targeting. The way they've changed the targeting was like it's I mean it's tough. Like, because they don't have to interrupt, right? Like the fact that like you can't bleed it out of them. It just shuts down a bunch of ranged attacks. It just
Yeah.
shuts them down.
Yeah, especially if it's on a bigger Shugenja. If it's on a guy like that has 4 or 5 force, like there's no way to ping him with like a 1 or 2 and force them to favor and then do something else. The real rub-ins is that A, it's not unique, so you can have 3 copies, and B, it doesn't even blow itself up. So like if
Correct.
you
The not blowing itself up is something that I feel like you're just used to these kinds of effects blowing themselves up. Like you're like interrupting the void's flow, the one that like sends your guy to it just feels like this would blow itself up. It totally doesn't. So it just shuts down
hitting
ranged attack strategies.
hitting melee in range too. Like this is the kind of card where you think that it would just affect range and like you could get him by stabbing the chick in the stomach. But like how in the Kami's name is she blowing your sword back into your face?
Plus, you have Ward of Air if they try to get things through. I mean, it's
so
a really
this card is so gas and like
it's a really good effect. Now, it's only a really good effect in decks that care about your opponent having melee and ranged attacks, and big tower spell decks don't really care. Your plan is to just have a guy who's a million force with burning spirits and things, but it can just wreak such havoc that it's gonna be in some decks just based on that.
So this is a card that's for the wide strategy. So like there's the tower strategy that like loads up, and we'll see a bunch of cards as we move forward that are for the tower strategy. But this card specifically is for going wide. It's specifically for like the Phoenix Honor deck that existed in early Ivory Arc, where it's like bow all your guys, and that card had enormous trouble with pew pew stuff because it was running a bunch of 0-force idiots.
Yep.
And so now you can make your 0-force idiots bigger, or you can play a bunch of these favor the air spirits and blow all their junk back on them. So I really like this card. I think it's cool design. I think it's incredibly frustrating, and if it ends up being good, players are going to absolutely hate it.
Whereas the Frozen Tomb is not all that good. So I guess there's it's 2 force for 1 gold sometimes. I really hate this card because I feel like the discard I don't like. So I can target my guy, but
he
then
can't move, but then he gets like minus force. Yeah, I don't like that as well.
I can target their guy, but it has to target people at the battle. So then, like, I target their guy, and then I can't send them home. I don't like this card. It's not for me.
I like it because the dude, like, you're trapping him in like the little thing that Ozzy from Chrono Trigger had. That like he makes his own like ice thing.
It's possible I'm focusing on the wrong part of this card. Maybe I should be focusing on targeting my opponent's guy. And then they get a bunch of force penalties, and it's just like a math card. It's just like strength and subtlety as a spell effect.
You know what else? So can you name another card that gives +1 force and reduces their force, but that is 0 gold and not 1 gold, and doesn't care about what they do? Fire Kami's Greed, man. Like this is just it's a bad version of Fire Kami's Greed. Next.
Yep.
I get that like they have to make a certain number of spells of each element because they're doing the elements.
It's an engage, right? The air is an interrupt. So like if you look at the different like traits, right? Like there's fire, earth, air is an interrupt, water's an engage.
Yeah, earth gets just like tradey stuff.
Yeah.
Whatever.
So Heart Thunder, is that just it's just Heart Thunder, not Heart of Thunder, not Thunder. Heart Thunder. Feels like one of the worst named cards ever. Like I don't get it.
Fear 2, you lost me. Like I don't know what the rest of the card is. Maybe you can read past that point for me and let me know what it says. But I'm not hopeful, and I'm not gonna keep going.
It gives you a force bonus, but only if your Fear 2 effect was actually successful.
Yeah, see, I knew it was safe to stop.
It could just be bow for Fear 2 and the guy +2 force. That'd be no good, right? So it has to successfully bow the card. And like if they courage it, it's just awful. We're done here. So Hitomi's Devotion was a card that I thought would see a lot more play than it did when it came out in Gates or Aftermath or whichever one. Those sets are just one set in my mind.
Those sets are so lethal. Like what survived battles back then? Like, oh, I'm going to put on my Hitomi's Devotion. I won't die in battle. Like, that's fine. I cast Suicide. Like, that's fine. I shoot you. That's fine. I Wormbone Katana you.
I felt like
it's really powerful.
This is such a powerful line of text, right? It's like I can defend, I can attack. You can't ever die in resolution. I'll defend and do things, and it was never played, and I want someone to play this card. I want it to be good, but it turns out it's just kind of not. It's not really where it's at, and I don't think anything has really changed.
Yeah, like effects like this
It's
seem
like
cool.
super resilient, but it's because
Super resilient.
you need cards that help you win battles, not cards that like make losing battles less painful.
You know what deck would have really liked this card?
What?
Ray Sensei.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So here's Kyoshi's Wrath. Now this is a card we played a lot of and will continue to play a lot of. It's just a spell with the battle action. Bowing something is good. It can bow a 4/4 personality even if they have followers, which no fear effect. So that's nice.
It's nice when you
make spells that are just straight better than fear effects.
That's a list. That is a list. Yeah, this is a great card. This goes in that like bow everybody Phoenix Defensive Honor deck, which actually got a lot of help. There's also there's like a kind of an interesting battle action, the Legendary Victory one we'll talk about when we get there. But this is an excellent one. We still have Sutengu's Blessing. No, not Blessing, not Surge, something. Embrace? I don't know. Sutengu's something that's also like a bow effect.
Embrace.
Those two cards together form the backbone of the deck, so Kyoshi's Wrath coming back tells me that they're actively supporting that deck.
Mark of Heaven's Favor, a spell that I feel like you've seen before, but not exactly. This one removes itself from the game because they want to stop shenanigans, and you can only ever target one holding once. Because,
they never messed that up. Cesar's Blessing removed itself from the game.
Yeah.
I think Flight of Doves did not, but that only increased honor gains, and it was terrible.
Yep.
So Mark of Heaven's Favor, I think, are the doves in the picture a reference to the card Flight of Doves?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, that doesn't seem entirely implausible.
But this card is totally awesome. Anytime you see an effect like this, it's really, really good. At the very worst, it's going to increase the gold production of a holding. At the very best, it's going to do something.
Now that I don't actually know, because is the numeral like it permanently increase a positive numeral on a target? Can you increase the gold production thing that shows up
it's on a card. It doesn't say in the text box.
Okay, I guess I just wasn't sure on that.
I think in theory they ruled you can increase the copyright date.
Nice. That sounds like a question someone would ask. Sure, why not?
Yeah, they asked it about Alchemy Lab.
Can you increase the number of cards in the set? Like this is no longer card 210, it's card 211.
It's a number on the card.
Sure. Okay. Fair enough.
So
but it does not. Okay. Yeah.
At the very worst, it's like a one Koku type card. At the very best, it's going on like a Daigatsu Dojo and you're killing somebody every turn. Now, I don't have a lot of hope for the Daigatsu Dojo thing, but I do have hope for this doing something degenerate, and I will certainly be keeping my eyes peeled for it.
Yeah, and we talked about this before, but 1 to 2 is a big switch on something like Gain Honor. So the obvious interaction
Temple Grounds.
Temple Fortress. It's like if every time my Temple Fortress bows, I gain 2 honor, that's like really, really good. And so for me, the obvious straightforward home is just Shugenja based honor deck, which is Phoenix, and you're putting down your mark, you're hitting your Temple Fortress, you're bowing and you're gaining 2 honor every time it bows. That's really good, right?
Absolutely. And I'll be jamming Shugs into Crane just to play this card.
Absolutely. So, and I don't know, you hit a poorly placed garden, so it bows to mage 3, and you're like living the days of your old Crane stronghold there. So
there you go. So yeah, Mark of Heaven's Favor, probably an honor card at the beginning, but I think these cards really shine when they do unexpected things. So every time a new set comes out, the first thing I'll do is look at all the holdings and look at what the numbers.
Yeah, like scan. And you just sort of see what's out there. See, if they ever say something that says like draw a numeral on it, like draw 1 card with the numeral 1. Oh boy, those are the days.
Those are the days. You can, yeah. Moving on to Pull of the Tides here. These sort of switchy ones, they don't ever do it. They never quite do it for me.
Yes, it's sudden movement, but only for your guys. Nothing for me.
You gotta be. There's no like absent homie stuff going on there.
It's sorta kinda like they don't have a spell that just like moves a guy back. Like but you do have Home to Razor's Edge Dojo, so you do have effects to do that, but I guess it's like you can make it's like a tower, like you can build your 1 tower and then put a couple other pulls around it so that if they manage to send your tower home. You can like get it back.
Yeah.
I'm never playing this card.
No, me either. And it's tough for me to even concoct a situation where I want to play it. So moving on, reach across the world is another action. Like this is just a confusing one.
You could
Um,
run it, so I could see this as a one-off in certain situations where you maybe want to construct a tower at some point, but early on you're going wide, and then late you want to put all your burning spares. You're never playing this card in triplicate, but the way you can move through a Fate deck now, especially in like Shugenja decks and like Strength of the Fifth Rings and this kind of stuff, I could see playing one of these and like walking for. It's like you're getting to the end of the game and you've identified your opponent as having the only out of come one at a time, and so you decide you're just going to like jam all your burning spirits into a single unit,
mhm.
something like that.
All
Like,
right, fair enough.
okay, like there's a place for this card, and also you can do it as a battle to like you're going wide and you send all your guys in and they answer one guy, and then you're pretty sure they're going to do a different target, and you move things around just to sort of screw up their targeting and make life harder for them. So it's a fine effect, it's a cool little effect, but it's not clearly powerful. It's very situationally good, and that might earn it like a fun off spot in a couple of decks.
For sure. Would you say that it's subtly powerful?
No, I would say that it's situationally good,
Good.
but that doesn't make it powerful.
We should make like a list of our scale of card goodness that goes
I
from
do
like
feel like I
unplayable to
need
subtly
to
powerful.
I do kind of want to apologize, and before we do actions, I'm actually going to try to make an effort to change up the vocabulary, because I feel like I go to like neat and good and media. Like I feel like the the English language has so many of these great words, and I'm not doing a good enough job in our set reviews. I think there's some criticism there about sort of the language that we use and how specific it is, because we probably say too many cards are good when what we mean to say is acceptably average.
I try to be positive. So Sailor's Warning, I think, is a fine card. It loses a lot of stock with the loss of the Sensei. I don't know what decks will play it anymore. I
So the place it'll go for me now, though, is it is a Thunder Battle. It doesn't mean a lot, but just the naval Shugenja Mantis decks. There's a lot more naval Shugenja now because Mantis have a Shugenja sub theme, and so it just blows up for the naval ranged 3, naval ranged 4 attack, but it's 0 gold instead of having to invest in 3, 4, 5 gold, and you have to put it out there so people can see it coming. But if they see it coming, it doesn't matter if there's nothing they can do.
Fair enough.
So
Yeah, okay. So
with
it's
Burning
fine as like a
Spirit,
naval
naval,
as a
yeah,
naval
big
action.
naval attack.
I'm
Uh,
still, I'm still using my naval action to final ruin your face. But if you don't have a final ruin, you can always play Sailor's Warning, which is what the card always has and always will be.
yep.
So
So see the many faces.
I hate this
I
card.
It's a rare too, which is just really, it's a throwback to this type of Inquisitor deck, the Temple of the Purity. But the cards for that deck aren't there at all right now. So this card is a total, like, if you get this card, if you're interested in this card, it's just because you're speculating, off into the distant future when it might turn on. My only hope is that at some point they create a holding that's like blow up a spell in play to do something, or blow up one and it's expendable, so I can blow this thing up and draw a card,
And then
attach
reattach
it,
it.
and
Yep,
throw it.
yep. Great thing to
That's
keep
the
in
only
mind.
I mean, that's it. That's the only value I get. I don't care about giving my guy the taint while I'm taking actions this turn. It turns on, I think, literally like 2
Two
personalities right now.
personalities. Well,
So
three.
who
It
cares?
turns on the two idiot Phoenix guys, and then the one spell divided to Ash gets +1 immediately
Yeah,
upon
and it's
openness.
not. I mean, it's not even like there's a Shadowlands. It's just awful, and I don't
It's trash.
care. We're
I
done.
have a rant about how we've gone from just giving the Shadowlands straight to this obnoxious. I have Shadowlands while you take actions. Like what?
Yeah, it's
I,
because of the way the taint has been changed after, Fu Leng died, and that guy Daigatsu sent it to Fu Leng's position, and so he made it so like the taint is a thing that only comes out when you choose to accept the taint. So this guy is sort of like saying they can make you feel the taint or something. I don't know.
but it's not even true because the Temple of Purity could just give you, here you go, here's Shadowlands. This is a straight design. This is a straight design thing. They've decided that
Yeah.
like giving you the thing is too confusing. There should be a triggered effect that floats in the background and pops up when I don't know what they're doing sometimes. Let's talk about a different card. Steal
Still
the
a Candle's
Candle's
Flame.
Flame. I love this card.
A great card before, and probably better now because the stock of melee and range attacks has actually gone up a bunch, and there's a
Absolutely.
lot more effects that make Tuesdays. I just imagine playing like Shugenja and naval Shugenja gets an Ashigaru archers because why not, and then give a steal, and now I've got naval ranged 4 attack.
Oh yeah.
That's good.
I think
That's
this card
great.
goes, yeah, and like every deck that plays military Shugenja is gonna want some member of
Because
this card.
Shugenjas are so pushed, and because you can run Shugenjas out, it's easy to get. Now it has to be. It's not absent. It has to be at the battlefield. But it's a good card, and making your range that it was a good card before and is a good card now because and also range zero attacks might just kill something sometimes. So all good. All bonuses.
Yeah, it's especially the Sensei. It's just absolutely there with the Sensei. I'm trying to double check quickly. You have to destroy your card first. You can't blow it up and interrupt. I didn't know if it was like make the range attack and then blow it up, or if it was blow it up then make the range attack.
Sure.
So I was wondering if you could blow up the steel and then interrupt with the same steel you're going to blow up and make a 5, which you can't. But you can blow up your enslaved Jin and then interrupt with this, make a range 5, and that's just awesome.
Yep.
This card is great. I really like it. It's really flexible. It plays nicely with Conflagration.
And like Sailor's Warning or things like Reach Across the World or Kyoshi's, 0 gold cost means it's just something you throw onto
You
the
just throw it
board.
out there and here it is. And now we've got big range attacks.
So Summon Water Kami is next. There was a Summon Earth and a Summon Air. Earth was the one that allowed and still allows goofy combo enlightenment things to occur.
Yeah, so we get water.
So they just pulled Summon Water. This is a pretty great one.
This is an awesome effect.
It bows your Shug unless it's water, but it's a blanket negation. It's a blanketed force that your opponent can't do anything about for this battle.
Yes, there's other players.
You're right. So you can still do stuff.
And but
your opponent can't.
Yeah, they can't even send you home.
They can't send you home. They can't move their guy. Right. They can't send you home. They can't move in, but you can still move home and or send them home. And so it allows for some very skewed battles. This card is powerful, man.
Yeah, this card is
the way battles
awesome.
can play out now. And this is another great effect against an honor deck that's trying to favor you and take the favor back and replay the favor and play deny the false form and play usurper. You can just shut all of those cards down. You can shut down a whole suite of cards while keeping your suite of cards active. It can also work defensively where it's I defend with my guys and you can't, send me home with incapacitated and stuff. It's a great card, and I think it's one of my favorite spells in the set, and I think it's something I've had, I look forward to using a lot, and I think it's going to cause a lot of trouble for people.
Lotus cards, surprise.
That's right.
I will be casting this and then playing Come One at a Time quite a lot.
Yeah, I could see that. Absolutely. For focus value. I never even thought about that. Yeah, I could. Yeah, absolutely. It is a battle action, so you have to take a moment to play it. But you play this, they can't send you home, and if they can't shoot you, then what can they do? They can bow you. I mean,
they can Come One. There's things they can do, but if you've got, you can try to plan around it. I'm still looking for the infinite combo Panger deck to replace the result of the duel, gain 1. So now I can make you attack with my Priestly Feud. You come in, I summon Water Kami, play my duel, and then you can't get me. And then I just duel you infinite times because you can't go home.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, this is actually, I think, an easier setup than what you're trying to do with the ring. So, yeah, I didn't even think of wackiness like that. I just think this is a really powerful.
Yeah, no, I mean, just as a spell. So just as let's think of a really fair deck, a Shugenja military deck, or a Mantis, Shugenja attack deck, where I just attach this and then go naval summon Water Kami. I think that's big game. I don't give honor decks fits, even if it just shuts off the favor. I mean, that'll give honor decks absolute fits. Dishonor decks too, because it cancels. You can't You can't strategic withdraw home. You can't plan
Right.
departure
It
home.
negates all the effects, so it negates something like your encircled terrain. Like it just doesn't. It's just like shuts it down. Like I
Yeah,
don't
like
care.
this card is big game, and it blows itself up if that doesn't remove, so you can pick it back up with your different effects. I really like this
Yep.
card. I was very excited to see it back in.
So the Mountain's Feet. This is an interesting card only because it's just a bow any enemy unbowed card,
With
and
upside.
that's something that you don't act like. That's not an effect that's like that feels like a very like whatever bow card, but that turns out to be kind of uncommon. There's some number of bow personalities. There's some number of bow card without attachments, but there's not actually a lot of just flexible, just bow something
Yeah,
like
point and click.
that's rarer than you might think within the card pool. And then raise or lower the current battlefield province thing is really interesting because it often will let you bow a 3/4 guy, but not care that much because you've also lowered the province strength by 3.
Yep. Um,
And it might let you do things like, I mean, it lets you defend, right? So you can also play it in the defensive deck really well, where you put it on your Genma and you bow your 0 force Genma and you bow their 5 force guy and your problem think goes up by 5 and you're that much. Yeah, another flexible card that is very valuable when you play it, man. There's a lot of spells that are like this.
Now it's 3 gold, so the obvious comparison is to Final Ruin. And I actually think that
Right.
this card, well, so I actually think this card is
Comes out
in the same
better.
ballpark
Yeah.
because it doesn't care about attachments, doesn't care about chi. It's point and shoot. And you're right, this is a rare effect at 3 gold cost. We see this effect on cards like we saw it on that 6 gold cost item. We see it on Bow of Ritual Blessings at 8 gold, but this is just 3 gold. And
Yep.
then the province strength manipulation isn't nothing. Like you can
Right.
hold this
And
action until after they play a couple of effects. You pick a guy with a weapon and you get like four or 5 points.
And it's not an effect that you get to do like Final Ruin. You can't like stack this effect the same way with like Jade Ascensions and stuff. But in decks that are going wider, and especially honor decks where you just have these little guys that you want to proclaim and gain their honor from, and you know like you got like a Mizuhiku here who's just 3 gold for 1 force. Like this card is just great there. I mean, it's really good. It's good offensively there as just a naval ball your guy straight up lower. But I mean, it's a really good flexible card, and I think people should probably play it. I don't
Yeah, I don't know
know.
if it's a triple
Not
card.
everyone. Not everyone is going to be as all in on all these Shugenja decks as we are, because at some point people want to play their samurai and people want to play
Fools,
their
fools.
gestures. But we are Shugenja people, and this is a good Shugenja card for us.
I also disagree that it doesn't stack as well as Final Ruin. So the thing with this card is that it sort of self negates as a defensive
Well,
action. It negates straightening.
it doesn't stack with Jade Ascension specifically because you have to bow your Shugenja as
Oh,
part of
sure,
the
sure,
game.
sure, 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 sure. I see. I see. But yeah, multiple copies on multiple guys, and like it definitely stops. It stops trading effects because if they got a 4 force guy, then they straighten afterwards. Your province strength's gone up anyway, so that guy's
Yep.
still no longer like he's not contributing force because the province strength is up. So I think this is a really cool card. It's a really interesting design. We haven't seen something. I guess we have because it's a reprint, but it's still a cool card, and its time is now. Okay, Thunder
Okay.
resounds. Hey, it says copy, so I'm interested.
Oh, it's. I think this
Wowie
spell was a
zowie.
mistake. I think this was one of those spells. It's just so cards have costs for a reason, and one of the reason cards often have costs is because of the abilities they produce, right? Because
Yeah.
of the text, because of the things they do. This card has a gold cost of 0. And so when it copies a spell with a gold cost above 0, that
It's
generally makes this card
very
awesome.
good. Yeah.
And one of the first spots I found for it was very straightforward, and it wasn't even like obviously like copying Final Ruin. Final Ruin has 3, and now I've got a Final Ruin that costs me 0. Like that's great, right? That's good. Copying the what's the one that makes the melee attacks? The Dragon's Talon or Ash divided
Divided
to
ash.
Ash.
That's 5 gold, and
Right.
it copies.
Those are that's an
Yeah.
effect that costs 5. This copies for 0. But part of divided into ash is a force bonus, but like even something like conflagration, so now this card can just be a 0 gold cost spell that gives you 2 force,
Yeah.
like repeatedly, like every different, it doesn't blow itself up. And I was just like, I read it and I was like, where's the destroy part? And I was like, I read it again. Where's the destroy? But it doesn't destroy itself. It
Just
just
sticks
keeps
around. Yeah.
just
You
keeps
know,
copying. And the ability to copy thunder spells at any location, that's cool, that's neat. You can spread
whatever.
your guys out. But to me, this is a spell that gets around costing mechanisms, and I think it will haunt them because it ensures that if you print an 8 gold cost spell that says something like destroy 2 units or destroy 2 cards. Like that's not a spell that's likely to be seen print, I don't think. But like let's say you make a big expensive spell. Now this thing gets to copy it and it costs 0.
Yeah.
That's
Now
ugh.
it has a slight cost. There's a tempo cost. The thing is that spells have become so defensive that if you want your tower to stick around, your tower ain't going anywhere.
Right. And you're right, you don't get the follow-up action. You have to take an action to copy, but I still feel like the ability to copy spells
Oh
at
no,
gold
it's
cost,
great. And the way that
above.
because the way that spell decks end up working out is you have a lot of little actions to take. So this is one you can hold in reserve.
Yep.
You can put it in a safe place where they can't get it on one of your bigger guys. It's tough to move. Or you
I,
cast your water kami, summon water kami. They can't move you anyway. Maybe they buy a couple
and
guys who cares, and then bang, you cast this.
I'm not saying the format's going to shape out like this because I talked a little bit how I don't think everyone's going to be as on spells as we are. But can you also imagine a world where like your opponent has, he's trying to take the tempo by playing out his expensive spells early, and then you just happen to have your Thunder Resounds and you copy his spells and stuff like. I mean,
Real life
it's a
misery,
thing that
yeah.
happens. Yeah,
So
it's a thing that happens.
the thing with this card is that I'm starting to get worried about how we were talking about there's less unopposed force bonuses in this set and sort of keeping blitz
Hmm.
down. But now, so you've got conflagration and you've got burning spear, and both of those is a +3 force and a +2 force, and then
Sure.
you've got Way of the Phoenix to cast it again. You've got Jade Ascension to cast
Yeah,
it
I
again. Now
mean,
you've got Thunder Resounds to
I've
copy
already
it.
looked at and built. I mean, I didn't post it. I was working on Undead Gems, but like I posted a thing about like how I chase down Blitz decks. And Spell Blitz it's doable. I mean, it's not hard. It's very much something that can just be done.
These
It's
spells
hard
are
to get
not
it to take
expensive.
it's hard to get it to work 100% on taking provinces turn 2, but it's very possible, right? Like conflagration plus burning spirit is 5 force for 4 gold, and then you throw down a copy effect, and I mean it gets you there, man. It just does.
So yeah, I mean this card is definitely powerful. I'm thinking about like the blanket force. It's so flexible too. We talk about how you lose tempo to take it, but it's not like the Mahatsu spell from last arc where you have to copy when you play it. Like you
And
throw it out there.
it's gonna let these Shugenja decks run a lot of two off versions of stuff, and then you attack with all your guys, and one of them has a Ward of Air, and then this copies the Ward of Air, and you send 2 units home, and you get pseudo conquer things. It's
Yeah, yeah.
it's great.
That's what I'm saying. Like you can hold it to like one of your last actions, and you've got like a word of air and a power of the earth, the blanket bonus, and you've got a final ruin, and you've got a burning spirit, and you can just sort of sit there and see how the battle shakes out, and then become whatever you need. So
Yep.
this card is bonkers. If you're playing Shugs, you're playing this.
Certainly. Now, there's a question of how many copies you play, but you're definitely, it's definitely in your list somewhere because
Thunder,
you're playing spells and yeah.
yeah, Thunder Dragon's Child. This is I mentioned it about how like there's just all these little conqueror effects all over the place now. We're getting close to being pretty easily able to just give everybody conqueror.
Yep.
And here's part of it. Well, do you like this
Um,
spell? I'm kind of on the fence about this one.
I think it's okay. I think that it works because there's a type of deck that builds. First off, shout out to the X-Men armor because that's what this looks like exactly. Which I don't know if you know who that is. It's a sort of Joss Whedon creation from when he did X-Men, his Amazing X-Men run, not to be confused with the awesome Amazing X-Men from Age of Apocalypse. Boy, I'm going down a thing here. Follow me, people. Stay with me now. Stay with me. But
Single
anyway, that's
file,
just
everybody.
anyway, because there's a type of all in on a single unit spell deck, which
Mm,
the Jade Ascension type decks where like you put a bunch of spells on a single unit and then you give that unit conquer with often guidance and war. This is just another effect to give you that. And
yeah.
plus 2 force. So 2 force and conqueror for 3 or 4 gold. I don't hate it. I don't love it. I think there's better options, both in terms of force efficiency and battle flexibility. And there's so many awesome spells that it's hard. Like you can easily go
It's
over
tough.
40, and I don't think this is what I need in my spell decks. But it's not a card that
Agreed.
I'm going to see in like Insult. I'm not going to be like, oh, don't play
How
that. I just
much? How
do
much is
better.
the +2 Force Conqueror mode on guidance? 4 gold, right?
Yeah, the plus force is 3 gold, and the conqueror is I think the first thing, so that's
Just
1 gold.
one. So yeah, I
So
feel like that's just straight better than this card because you
yeah,
can't
well,
you can't
guidance is
forget to bow it and do it.
yeah, that's right. Guidance is straight better because it gives you
And it's
other
more
things
flexible. Yeah,
to
yeah,
do,
yeah.
right?
So
You can
yeah, I'm not impressed with this
well, and
card.
the range tree without bowing. But this is, you can see so I just pulled it up. So yeah, it's 5. So for guidance for just Conqueror and Force is 5 gold.
Okay,
So this is slightly better. Like they're breaking guidance up a little bit. And so for 1 gold less, you can get just those two effects and
2 gold less to do
sacrifice
Thunder. Hey,
cavalry.
hey.
Correct. So, you know, it's fine. If that's what you were playing your guidances for, this can be guidance, 3 or 4 or 5 or 6, but meh.
Let's keep going. Thunderer's Embrace. I'm not, aside from the one that says copy, I'm not dying in love with all of these thunder spells. This one destroys itself. So the one that copies does not destroy itself, but range 3 or bow, a conditional bow effect does. You got me, Brian Reese. I don't know what's happening anymore.
I really feel like if we could go back and look at like the PDF templates or something or targeted, everyone just assumed that spell blew itself up. That's the only thing I could come up with. Like they just assumed that destroy the spell was stapled onto the text somewhere.
Yeah.
So
This spell is.
so yeah, free range 3 attack is good.
Mhm.
Like full stop there. Let's not like people play Unholy Strikes. Putting spells onto the board isn't that big of a deal anymore because you can get naval or you can spread out your actions, and so you get to take your actions, right? And if on Thunder you get a bow effect, meh is the only thing I can come up with because I don't want to be cashing this in for just a straight bow guy.
Mhm. Well, it just how does it stack against Sailor's Warning? I guess is what I'm thinking in my head, and this one always comes up behind because I don't care about the bow effect. I don't want to bow anybody, and Sailor's Warning can be a 4 or a 5 sometimes. This is always just a 3.
Right, and I think that's a fair comment and way to look at the card, but I don't know if it's binary. You're right. You're running the two spells probably in concert.
Am I? I think I just figure out which one is better and go all in on that one.
No, I feel like it's one of those effects that you're just going for multiple copies of. So you're just putting all this sort of thundery spells into your Mantis Thunder Shugenja deck, and you're just loading up your first 2 or 3 units and just getting in there.
Okay, Typhoon Surge. This was the like this was from Coils. It's like a abortive
It's a yeah,
harpoon
no, it's
effect.
a it's yeah, it's determined whatever. But also it can move one of your guys there,
Yep.
so it only straightens if it's their guy. This was a fine card, and I feel like this saw some fringe play, though I can't off the top of my head think where I saw it
Mhm.
played. This is what spells have for move back in, but they also have Hone to the Razor's Edge, which has disciplined and straightens things just straight up. Now it only moves your guys and moves into the post. I I don't see Typhoon Surge coming in unless
No.
you're trying to do some kind of roaming caravan harpoony deck thing, and I don't like those decks. They're a little bit too much gimmicky, and they tend to fold to like, okay, I defend with all my guys, and all you have are these weird harpoon effects. Like that's a
Yeah.
real problem with those kinds of decks.
Oh,
Like I
absolutely.
straight
Yeah, you're
defend,
holding 2
and
Typhoon
now
Surges. Like,
a bunch of your stuff is just turned off.
yeah.
Having to be, it gets put out there so they see it coming. It just doesn't pick guys off the way you want it to. So it ends up just being a 2 gold cost spell that moves your own guys back in, and you can do a lot better than that. So
Agreed. Okay, so that's spells. Like we've been saying over and over again, Shugenja are totally, totally pushed. We saw
if
at least 3 or 4.
and I want to take a moment because every faction has some Shugenja, right,
Hmm.
and some Shugenja-ish sub theme. but not everybody likes what their Shugenja like causes them to do. You don't want to play Lion Shugenja because you don't want to play Honor. You don't want to play maybe Mantis Shugenja because they force you to buy stupid Pokemons, but not anymore. I think that every
Thank
faction
God.
needs to take some time and look at their Shugenja. Poor Spider have very few Shugenja, and so
Yeah.
they don't really get to play in this swimming pool. But they can still win a bunch of the unaligned Shugenja if they want. And I mean, they're just
Right, and
these
that's the
effects
real
are
take,
good.
is that the unaligned Shugenja are totally awesome.
Yep.
That between the naval, the 5 gold naval one that invested 10 with a battle action, and Straighten herself, Backclan Chick, who's just been a staple since the second she was printed. And now you've got Kung An, who plays out the rings. You don't even need to play out the rings to get the 3/3 for 5 body. And then for the high honor factions, you have the Echo Mono, the
Yep.
4/4 if he's holding a spell. Like, those guys are all totally awesome. They've got great
And
numbers across the
I
board.
think the real takeaway is because they're comfortable playing Shugenja, Phoenix are going to just be great. I mean, I think
Oh,
Phoenix
yeah.
were really well positioned just off the Stronghold and some of their other cards, and I brew a lot of Phoenix decks, but spells are really important and they're really good, and people need to make sure that if they're not interested in pursuing that deck or building that deck or playing these decks, you at least better learn how these things work and what these spells do. There's a tendency sometimes, I think, to just kind of ignore Shugenjas for whatever reason, and you can't do that right now because
Absolutely.
they're in a really positive place.
The other side of that is that they're in a really switchy place. That all of these spells are
They're
just
very
extremely
flexible, yeah.
powerful. They're just extremely powerful effects. And Phoenix has high personal honor, and they start with high honor.
Yep.
Like, they can generate tons of force. They can have a bunch of battle actions. They can attack. They can defend. Like, their personality base is wide and deep. They have good guys, and they have a lot of guys, and they've got a lot of different guys to choose from. So,
Yep.
and that's just Phoenix. Mantis, I think, is going to be a better offensive deck just because they've got Naval Shugenja coming out of their ears.
Sure. And
But
certain factions are really limited. So Spider are limited. Crane aren't really filled
mhm,
overflowing with Shugenja, but they can still benefit from some of these. The spell that increases the numerals, right? Like they
yeah.
can still benefit from that. So
And then other things like, so I'm on these like Gunso tower decks. Like, there's no reason why I can't play that out of a bunch of Shugenja shells. The Shugenja can hold all the followers. Then I can also play
yep.
the spell that pushes your melee attacks back on you to protect my followers.
Yeah. No.
Like, the Shugenja are just in a really, really good place, and there's not a lot of cost to running them. Like, just because your deck is filled with Shugenja, there's so few actions that care about you being a samurai that
Yep.
it doesn't, like, there's no reason to just not play a couple.
Yeah, and I think that's really the takeaway is that everyone can afford to get some number of Shugenja into their decks, and there's enough sort of spreading
Payoff.
out of effects here that
Yeah.
it's worth definitely doing. So
And not, we've been doing it forever because we just can't help ourselves casting Banish, but I feel like people
yeah,
who want to
I think
play.
no, just straight like you like buying guys and putting your attention. Yeah, you can still do Strength of the Fifth Ring, Banishy type shenanigans, but that's not what I'm envisioning. I'm envisioning a
Mhm.
lot of Shugenja military decks that
No,
are
no,
just
no, that's what I'm
running
saying.
spells, yeah, in place of these other effects.
Yeah. And, like,
So, and
especially
Phoenix can do
players.
it best, but Dragon and Mantis also have Shugenja with Force. Crab have Shugenja with Force, and they all get in on this party.
For sure. So, check it out. Plus the gold for Shugenja is so good between Honor and Sensei and Mystic Dojo.
Yep.
It's an embarrassment of riches,
So,
is my final
yep.
analysis.
So have fun with that, everybody.
All right, so all that's left is strategies. There are 91 of those. So join us next time
For
for our
part
two and a
one.
half hour special of Red Cards, The Bleeding.
That's it.
There's some real winners in that batch, let me tell you.
And a lot of losers that aren't going to take us very long.
Yeah, we'll try to crank through it. All right, guys. Hope you enjoyed this. Let us know. How do you feel about Shugenja in your clan? Until next time, I'm Jesse. That's Paul. This has been Enough Talk.